Hi everyone. Today I'm joined by Adam Alexic, better known to millions online as Etymology Nerd. He's a linguist and he creates viral videos all over TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. And he's the recent author of the book Algo Speak about how social media is transforming the future of language. So, welcome to the show.
Hi, super excited to be here. Nice to finally meet you.
No, of course. Yeah, we've been, as I was saying before, off the recording, that we have a huge overlap in our audiences, and so I thought they'd all get a kick out of that or kick out of this. So I wanted to open with I don't know, something that maybe a lot of people can relate to is just what first got you into linguistics?
Yeah, well, for me, the origin story is 10th grade of high school. I was just wandering through a bookstore looking for like the geography section or something, stumbled across this other book called the Etymologicon by Mark Forsyth. And incredible book for beginners. It like got me into this circular way different words in English are connected. I was fascinated, started reading a lot more about etymology, started a little blog for myself back in 10th grade called etymologynerd.com, and I'd do like a little blog post on where each word came from. Started making like infographics about language and posting those online, and then studied linguistics in college. Was graduating with a linguistics degree. Was like, what do I do now? And I mean, the classic question, and decided to give content creation a shot, and it worked out to the point where now there's a book too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't know the etymology nerd name went back so far.
It goes back. Yeah, people think, oh, this is a pseudonym that you recently created. No, no, yeah.
Yeah, that's I mean I love the idea of like just like looking up just the history of a word and that just kind of opening everything up for you because I mean that's it really is just like simple questions like that motivate the study of linguistics really like
I think it tells you so much. It
yeah.
tells you underlying patterns about human behavior. I mean, language is a proxy for how humans relate to one another, how we perceive the world. You start to understand like where these words are coming from. You understand our patterns of thought and who we are as people. So it's, and also everything is language. You can't talk about literally anything without using language.
Yeah,
So I
no.
get to study everything at once. It's incredible.
Yeah, it is an interesting connection. I mean, basically, you can study the linguistics of any field, of any subject, unless they're somehow talking in some telepathic, I don't know, some sort of new tech that we don't have yet, but Neuralink maybe. But yeah, maybe we'll talk about stuff like that at the end. But I definitely wanted to just open up with general your like background in linguistics. So you studied in college. What are things like with etymology or just linguistics in general that people tend to misunderstand because it's like it's everywhere, right? Like everybody you're as you were just saying, like everybody's speaking. That's linguistics right there. But like people don't often like actually know like that much about the background of it. Yeah.
Right. Well, there's a lot of very common like stock misconceptions. There's in folk etymology is the idea that we create stories about what words are that might be wrong, and then we sometimes that even affects the direction of language itself. A common example here is that people think words come from acronyms all the time. They usually don't. And in the social media era, maybe a little bit more, but they usually don't. Usually, I'd be very skeptical if you hear an acronym etymology. It's also just like on a broader level, words don't just evolve from point A to point B. There's like word C influencing it. It's also in socio-cultural context of word D. And then it's not ever a really neat story. Now, when we're communicating online, we have to package it as this simple explanation, but in reality, it never is that simple. Words evolve through aesthetics. They evolve through, there's the exact process that's happening. There's who it's being borrowed by. There's always the social context. You can't really separate that, I think. There's so much happening at all times. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, as you said before, it's literally like the study of like just human interaction almost because, but yeah, there's cool like diagrams and stuff that you can make. Like you're saying, you love making infographics. But like, I think I was talking with Laura Spinney, who wrote a book about Proto-Indo-European, and she was talking about how
Was that
we
Proto?
have these.
The How One Ancient Language Went Global? I'm
Yeah.
plugging another book here.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a
sorry
good one.
about that. Double plug. Anyway, I was saying that the trees in there. She was saying that there's so much there's this white space in between the crisp lines, and then, of course there's so much else going on there, and that's the stuff you're talking about. Word C, the horizontal influences. So yeah, it's like it is kind of fun to just make those kind of videos I make where it's just like you go straight through like from one word to another, but realistically the meaning changes, everything else that
I
gets like
mean, your videos are really important still because they teach us like, okay, there are rules, there's patterns, there's what we want to understand here is like, okay, we can look at the pattern and now we can have a greater sense of what's actually happening. There's
yeah,
the known knowns, and then there are all these unknown unknowns, things we don't know. But the things we can point to, these are little vestiges of history, are amazing for sort of seeing what we're not seeing, like what's culturally important at different points in history. Like, why did this sound change occur? What was happening? That's
yeah.
all things we can sort of get at through the hints of words past.
Yeah, no, I think one thing you said earlier reminded me of a like etymological connection that was like folk etymology, but then it like sort of became real. So it was like female and male like
Right.
are not etymologically related, but the fact that they sound so similar and are written the same now is because people perceive them as being like some sort of through some sort of folk etymology that they're related. So like you can kind of like I don't know, you can just like make it so, you can come up with your own etymology and then sort of like make it
Right.
retroactively true.
Isle and island, unrelated. Pen and pencil,
Yeah.
unrelated. Like a lot of that. But at this point, people probably implicitly assume that they are related, and maybe
Yeah.
have spelled them that way because of that. I mean, there's a whole rabbit hole with
Yeah, I'm sure.
phonous themes as well. Like words have some similar sounds, and maybe that. Yeah, that's getting more into like the speculative.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some truth to that though. I've seen, or just because like there's some common root that has that phonesthetic value or whatever that people like to just kind of reuse and whatever whether it's like a pharmaceutical name or something or just whatever, just random
Right.
new words.
Why do some drug names just sound pharmaceutical, right? Oh, well, so
Yeah,
the quintessential examples like SL, slick, sleek, slop,
yeah,
slushy, slippery. Why do all those all have like the slimy, sluggy connotation? It's
yeah,
it's because maybe that all words are evolving under that aesthetic of sl has a slippery feeling.
yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like probably some root, but then people are just like, nah, slow is just always this now. Um, yeah, no, I mean, there is always there's always so much rabbit holes you can go down with etymology. That's why it's just um, really great way like window into linguistics because you can just you just bounce around. You can just keep pointing stuff. And
Right.
it's like a great way to learn. Really. You just keep getting further deeper into history, and then you find like modern cognates and how those are interacting with each other. Yeah, great stuff. Well, I wanted to talk about something that you focus on that I don't really touch on too much on my channel, which is all about so like languages are always changing, but they're also still changing, right? Like there's still stuff going on today. So I want to talk about internet affecting linguistics and modern technology because in some ways it's nothing new, right? Like I mean, languages have always been changing, but in some ways maybe it is like novel and it's affecting language in ways that other technologies didn't. So,
Right.
how do you, with that paragraph there, how do you respond to that?
No, you open perfectly. I mean, in some ways it's new, in some ways it's the same. And in most ways, I would say like we are just reliving time-honored linguistic traditions like censorship, memes, attention. All these things are like constantly the same as they have been, but it's a new medium, and the medium will always affect how language evolves. So my book
Yeah,
opens up with like unalive as an example that we can't say kill on TikTok, so we have to say unalive. And there's children in middle schools really saying like unalive in
yeah,
their essays about Hamlet contemplating unaliving himself, stuff like that. But that's just like the things we can't see, right? The known knowns. Then there's like maybe the known unknowns, like the structure of algorithms and how they incentivize virality and attention means that certain words that are better at grabbing our attention are going more viral than they otherwise would. There's like compounding processes pushing like certain trends to the forefront. Like how did Riz get from nowhere to the Oxford English Dictionary word of the year in a span of a year when it might have taken a decade before? That kind of stuff. That's more of the known unknowns territory. And then we start to get into the unknown unknowns, but we don't really know what those are definitionally. But yeah, I do think algorithms as a new medium are fundamentally compounding and speeding up maybe processes that
okay.
have happened before. I do think it's not a new thing. We're having the same functional kind of drivers of language change that we've always had, but it's perhaps happening compoundedly.
So maybe like an accelerator as opposed to like some sort of categorical change. Like it's just like speeding. Because I remember a lot of people will talk about how language might not change as much, or like English might not change. Like the future of English will be relatively set in stone because
I'm
of the internet, but maybe it would be
yeah.
the opposite. Like, I
I'm
don't
not
know.
really sure about that. I mean, like
Yeah.
definitionally, okay, so in linguistics we have the idea of like productivity, what makes words be created or
Yeah.
change more. What's a productive force? I think the algorithm is literally a productive force. We can look at that by the way it censors the word kill. That is censorship is productive in that it causes new substitutions and euphemisms to occur. So now we know that unalive is productively uh, like emerging from the censorship
Yeah.
of the word kill. But now the word unalive is being censored, so people like write it with UN at sign L exclamation point VE or something. And we have this innovation because of what the algorithm is doing. And that again, that's the easiest to point to example. But we
Yeah.
also have the broad memes, the broad trends, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you on that. There's a good chance it's. I mean, we don't really know. Obviously, it's like hard to get a ton of
It's
data
very
when you're
difficult
like,
to quantify anything
yeah,
like this because you start to dabble in like what's a word, and that's something we don't even know.
yeah. Well, yeah, like there's no like real like fully like comprehensive definition of word. That's always tough. But I was saying like with the question of whether the internet is changing linguistics or languages in a novel ways, it's like, well, it's only been like what are like 30 years, so like you can't really make like too strong 30 years since everybody's had it. I know the internet's been on for longer than
Well,
that,
I
but
think internet is step one. Algorithms are step two. Gretchen
yeah,
McCulloch did a fantastic book because of the internet. Everybody should read that. On the internet, David Crystal's done some cool work. So the internet already was one mechanism, one new medium for changing language. We saw the written replication of informal speech. We saw uh, certain slang and text abbreviations and stuff like that get popularized. We see stylistic changes depending on the perceived audience, right? That's a lot of the new ways of expressing ourselves online are simply because the internet is there as a medium. My book, AlgoSpeak, is about how algorithms are like this entirely new addition that
yeah.
is as much of a fundamental shift as the internet itself, I think, because their influencers are molding their speech around it, which is affecting our speech, the speech we perceive, and the speech we use to relate to one another.
Yeah, I guess that's they often divide into like Web 1 and Web 2, right? So like I guess you're really
Hmm.
focusing on the Web 2 effects um on speech. Yeah, Web 3 is what that's like crypto stuff, right? I don't even know what that would, how that would affect language, but yeah, Web 2 definitely sounds like talking about social media and stuff and how that affects language. Does it is like categorically different, I guess, in a way from just the general internet. But I guess in terms of underlying linguistic effects, it's just like accelerating things, stopping things, like removing words from our
I
vocabulary.
think
Yeah,
there's also a huge effect of like categorization. Algorithms work by like labeling us in as many ways as possible. They want to create like representations of who we are. Influencers then like use these words. So I don't know, like something like cottagecore, goblin core, angel core, grandma
yeah,
core, all these like cores. But like there's a lot of different. That's just one example of all the fashion aesthetics that could exist. There's everything from like cyber goth to dark academia to all this stuff are all like labels that are attached to you now, and they're labels that help the algorithm better categorize you. They want these buckets. The influencers create these buckets because they're catchy, they're trendy. Algorithm then catches onto those trends, uses them actually to categorize us as people, as demographics better. So we're having the acceleration of micro labels, aesthetic micro labels on TikTok, that kind of stuff.
yeah. And I mean that's not just like Web 2. If Web 2 is just social media, this is something different because like social media at its just most basic is a lot different from when with the social media we have now with paired with all these algorithms that can understand what you're saying in videos and use that information. I saw one of your videos about that. It was like how like hashtags are almost like not really relevant anymore because you can just actually just parse the text right out of a video or on screen or something. So yeah, that's definitely something completely new and can see how that's speeding things up. Like you don't have to. It just takes away all the friction of me having to provide the data like manually, right? It's just they just take it.
Right, and distribution is now different. Like
Yeah,
previously, I would have to put a lot more effort into getting a bunch of people to see my message. In one way, social media platforms have democratized access of who gets to talk. In another way, they've constrained the access into their frame of how we're supposed to talk. So both of us will talk
yeah,
quickly online because probably we have it to go viral. Like that gets the attention better. It makes people rewind, which is good for engagement. It generates comments about how quickly we talk, all of that. So we feel perhaps constrained, or even if we don't talk like that, it's just not going to go viral. There's a huge survivorship
Yeah.
bias in what even like goes through the filter. What people eventually see in their For You pages is this diluted microcosm of reality that conforms to what's going to generate attention for the platforms that they can then commodify.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, the survivorship bias means that like, your stuff's not getting removed, but it's almost getting removed based off of who gets to see it because the algorithm kind of does just have control over who sees
Right.
what you post,
And
right? So
successful strategies will just replicate because people
yeah,
will repeat what they see. In other cases, they'll directly be in touch with their audience analytics or something and they'll see, oh, my views dropped off right here. What did I say? They go back and check. Okay, maybe I can say something else next time. Next time they say something else, they see, oh, views
yeah,
did better. And now they just use the thing that worked better. I think that's how that
yeah.
happens.
I mean, as a creator, that definitely resonates with me, like that kind of idea of like tinkering, like making slight adjustments to something to add to that virality or just success engagement. Um, and I think that was definitely one of the things I want to talk about. It's a good segue into like memetics and how there's like an evolutionary environment for content for language on the internet, and so certain slang just is like evolutionarily more fit, right? Like
Yeah. Well,
maybe
the
there's something about
evolution.
Riz that was just so fit that
Right.
just took off.
I mean, I agree. Well, the evolution thing, we first have to recognize this is a metaphor that is imperfect,
Yeah,
but it is helpful for trying to explain what's going on. I do think it is true that words outcompete other words based on, and this is all deeply embodied sociologically, just based on our vibes of what the word means in this exact context. All of that can be factored in. So there's no like one thing that's innate to a word. It's person
yeah,
to person. But I do think the reason we use words is because at some level we just like using those words more than other words. Maybe we liked adopting the sl sounding words because they sounded slippery to us or whatever because of that ingrained sociological context. In the same way, the word Riz it's catchy. It generates probably engagement and comments from people who see it as brain rot. So it's more algorithmically catchy as well.
yeah.
It,
Well, yeah,
uh,
that's what I was gonna say. Is like the environment is now this algorithmic area. Like,
yes.
yeah,
So there's strategies that are more algorithmically successful than other strategies. I talk a lot about the influencer accent in my book about how certain styles of speaking have replicated because so again we'll have the high speed, stressing certain words kind of. I mean, I talk quickly in real life, but I think I modify my speech for the perceived algorithm. Then there's, depending on the perceived audience, there will be lifestyle influencers or Mr. Beast style entertainment influencers who all speak differently, but speak in a way that is catchy for their audience.
yeah.
And those styles replicate because at this point now that's the accepted way to speak online, but it's also just what works.
True. Yeah. I mean, it, in some ways it's just like it's kind of what you'd expect to work, right? Like it's like talking really fast, getting the information out quick. When you have algorithms that rely on like the first few seconds of a video to determine like its viability for a larger audience, then yeah, you got to get it out quick, right? Um, yeah. I mean, so it's like I like that you're emphasizing that there's like this sociological aspect up to it, right? Because like maybe Riz would have done just as well if it was like I don't know sniz or something. Maybe not because there's that like nasal
Sniz has got the
association, right?
nasal connotation, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Well, okay, yeah,
like that,
but aside from the sociological thing, yes, I do want to get more into the algorithmic thing, which you were alluding to. That there's words that generate more engagement, generate more comments. New words tend to do that as well because they're entertaining. They grab our attention longer.
yeah,
We keep watching if we see the word skibbity, probably, or we comment or whatever. But it's more engaging than the lack of the word skibbity. And so the word skibbity spreads. Creators see that the word skibbity is trending. Algorithms reward and amplify innate human trends. Once creators see that, they start using these kind of brain rot words, and then it becomes more of a trend because more of the audience is now watching this and expecting this kind of content, and then the algorithm amplifies it more. We end up in this cycle of
yeah,
words being algorithmically amplified, and it's absolutely an algorithmic survival of the fittest. And that I think this era is the best possible era to be studying memes, and memes have always been around. All words are memes.
yeah,
What is a meme is also kind of poorly defined in the same way as what is a word is poorly defined. But a meme is this idea that is transmitted culturally over time. And when the meme dies out, the word dies out. That's when the meme is popular, the word is popular. That's yeah.
yeah. I guess I like the idea of just saying like a word is like almost like a subset of memes or like the study. I guess in a way, the study of linguistics is sort of subset of the study of
I think
mimetic.
it's meme
I don't know if I
science.
want to go
Yeah.
that far, but
Well, I think memes go a lot further than words. Like a
yeah,
tool is a meme. A hammer is a
fair,
meme.
yeah,
Like when the hammer was invented, now that was an idea that was captured into an object that was then replicated by other people because they saw that this is a good thing in terms of a tool that we can use. And so now it's like catchy in the sense that it caught our attention and our it felt applicable, so we used it. In the same way, a word is a tool that we use to express ourselves. So hammers and words are both tools, and which are both memes. Memes are just like ideas or concepts that can be physical or mental that humans latch onto and then replicate. I think the replication is a critical part of what makes something a meme, probably.
yeah, because then you can start talking about like the general I guess ideas with memes where there's this tinkering of improving
There's
them over time. There's this sociological
readaptability.
context. Yeah.
When we talk about internet memes, they rely on a template and then they are readapted through different formats, through different what's used to fill in the template, and maybe the idea can also be remixed into a different template at a different point, and all like the memes change through the idea space over time.
Yeah, idea space. I like it. And yeah, and then that obviously that space can be modified or restricted in certain ways, and that'd be what we're seeing now with different cultures. Obviously, have different memes that are successful there, right? Like if your culture is if it really values one thing, then a meme making fun of that might not do that well. But then yeah, different culture might be like that, and so the uh, the internet has its own culture, and certain parts of the internet have their own culture, and
Right.
yeah,
There's defining aesthetic undercurrents to what's going to go viral at any point. And I do keep hammering home that point, but I don't think you can ignore sociology. I don't think you can ignore aesthetics.
yeah,
I don't think you can ignore embodied experience. All of that is critical to what we eventually just see as funny or catchy or cool. And that's what we end up adopting, words that we see as cool or funny.
yeah. I mean, you get really meta when you when you talk about the memes, but it is like it's important to I guess zoom out like that because yeah, the talking about just like the linguistic core things that affect like how sound changes happen and stuff. It does miss some of the stuff in the background that's happening, which is like why do people feel the need to have a word for this? Why do they feel stop feeling the need to have a word for this? Right? Like
All
that's
right,
those
that's
are the questions.
yeah. The problem with what I was saying earlier about we have to simplify stories is that there's always so many angles you can analyze the exact same thing through. When I'm talking about how word A changed to word B, I can talk about the exact process that happened. Oh, was this like, I don't know, was this folk etymologized? Was this reduplicated? Was this metathesized? Whatever. That's the exact process. I can talk about the aesthetic trend. I can talk about the sociological context. I can talk about how the spelling shifted or how its grammatical usage shifted. I can do any of these things, and all of them might be true at the same time, but I have to present it one way online, which is why I also like branching out to longer form media that I can express these thoughts in a more complex manner.
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, the depth is so fast. I remember this one channel I made like 20-minute videos on like the etymological connection to like two words. I wish I didn't remember the name right now. Anyway, yeah, you could just keep going like you and tie it into as many different things as possible. So I like transition a little bit. So one of the cool things that you've experimented with is different like modalities of language and like conlangs and stuff. And I like that
Conlangs
idea
are
because
such a fun tool to play around with exactly that. Yeah.
yeah, because I mean you can think about especially if you kind of embed your conlang in some sort of like fantasy world or whatever, like hypothetical like different culture, like then you can really experiment with like all right, in this context, cultural context, the language is going to have to be different. Like the rules are different. Like the what it was evolutionarily successful in this context is different. So, tell me about what are some of the things you've been experimenting with? Because I've definitely heard some good stuff about it.
I haven't been as locked into Conlang since I did a gorilla language at the start of this year, but mostly I've been working on the book stuff now. But the gorilla language was like I like doing animal languages because it's fun to experiment with the limited kind of phonological inventory. That's what sounds you have. So I thought like, what if you could make a language that's like all all breathing in and out? Like that's possible. You can just do
Yeah,
that.
sure.
And then what other aspects of gorilla culture might affect how they organize their language, right? I was playing into like human stereotypes of gorillas because I thought it would be funny. But you know, when I was doing dolphin language, I was thinking about I don't know, like what is communication through water like? What is uh, I did a bird language. How do you tonally communicate stuff? That's all phonology, but also like yeah, birds to me are like more hyper than gorillas. So I made my bird language. I made the syntax feel more hyper. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like you have to. There's sometimes it's like it's a specific thing. Like I think like if you're a bird, maybe like the word for to go is just like to fly, or is the same thing as like as opposed to like walking and going or something. But also it's just like there's just some sort of bird aesthetic you also have to go for, right? So um,
Right.
and that's what honestly really can make conlang so captivating as like a just work of art, because you're learning this language or you're hearing it, you're seeing it in a video, and it's like, wait, that just that feels so different.
Right. You're into Toki Pona, right? That's just a
Yeah,
fascinating example of a minimalist conlang where I do think there's some truth to linguistic relativism, right? Like it's going to
yeah,
frame your appreciation of the world and how you see things. And maybe you're looking at things through a more simplified framework. I think that's, very possible. And maybe that induces a more simple mindset. I like the ideas that it brings up a lot. And there's a lot of like these there's different types of conlangs. There's art langs, which is just like proof of concept, like doing it because it looks pretty. There's SO langs and ang langs, like stuff like that's engineered to have a purpose. There, yeah. Um, it's there's a lot you can do with it. It's a really good mechanism for playing around with language because also in constructing a language, you have to consider every aspect of what goes into a language, which is a lot.
yeah. No, well, I like the idea of bringing up linguistic or relativity or yeah, I guess it's superior worth hypothesis. So for anyone who hasn't heard it, it's like just the idea that the language you speak impacts the way you think. So obviously, like on the lowest level, that obviously makes sense. Like if I'm gonna think in different words if I know a different language, but is it more is it deeper than that? And that's the real question. And I think with conlangs you can start to see how maybe it would because Tokipona restricts your vocabulary so much that you're thinking potentially different thoughts than you would not
hmm
maybe more general thoughts, which can just affect overall how you think. But I like the idea of connecting it also to just like censorship and stuff like that because and stuff we were talking about before because to a certain extent it's like all right we lost kill we'll just stay on alive, right? It's like yin and yang, like
Well,
we're all
so
back,
I
it's
mean, we're
normal.
still able to express the concept of killing, but the connotation, the what's implicit in the word unalive is a little bit different than what's implicit in the word kill. Few things. It's cartoonish. It's like it started out as a meme. It comes from a 2013 Ultimate Spider-Man like episode or something. So it was originally a meme that turned into a Roblox meme that got repurposed in the mental health space in like 2019 on TikTok. And now it's just this term of art in the algo speak sociolect, how we talk on social media, right? So all of this stuff is imbued into the social connotation of the word unalive. All the stuff that's in the word kill includes every time the word kill is used in a movie or in a book or whatever, all of that is still like on the back of the word. It's all still there on some level. And so the vibe of these words is different. We can all agree that the vibe of unalive is different than the vibe of the
Oh,
word
absolutely.
kill. That's another thing that I really try to emphasize that I don't think is talked about enough in academic linguistics, which treats languages maybe more arbitrary. It's that words do have vibes, and there's like a feeling we get when we experience a word. So yes, we lose the vibe of the word kill, and now the vibe of the word unalive is different. It also implicitly always there's a meta-linguistic signal that you're being censored. Like when I say, "Oh, this person unalive that person," I'm not only just telling you that they killed that person, but I'm saying there's like a few levels of communication. I'm saying, "Oh yeah, this person killed that person," but I'm also saying on another level, I'm saying, "Oh, the algorithm won't let me tell you that they killed them." So I'm like communicating two things at once. And I mean, implicit in anything we're saying, there's always multiple modes of what's being like implied.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point, to not forget about the greater context, even if like the root
Yeah, we
meaning
exist in the
meaning of
context. Yeah.
yeah, well, the root meaning of unalive is essentially the same as the root meaning of kill. But then, like, if you just zoom out slightly, you see all these differences. Yeah, like with the context people would use them in realistically, and yeah, how the vibe of it. Yeah, I like the aesthetics of it. Like, and so yeah, and it's like conlangs like they experiment with. that for, I guess, just artistic reasons, but then there's also just live experiments being run on everybody as well, just in terms of uh, changing the context in which words exist and how you can use them. So yeah, I like to think that over long enough time scales, people will just adapt and change and just kind of preserve the same kind of lexical or semantic space and they won't lose anything. But if it's changing really fast and not everybody's aware of it, then yeah, you can definitely see how that could really actually have a sort of dwarfian
No, I
effect.
mean, no word when it replaces another word is ever going to completely supplant the original word's
Yeah,
vibe. It's going to have its own thing. It's also existing in a different point in space and time, and we're looking at it through a different social lens. We're going to interpret it differently. That's going to happen.
exactly. Oh, yeah. I mean, when you think about it, like I'm not sure what the Old English, root of kill is, but I'm sure it's not it didn't have the same meaning as kill today. Like when I think of kill, like it's such this abstract, distant concept where I've never killed anybody. So I don't. But imagine just like having witnessed people getting killed or something like that in your life, and then like that is just like constantly in part of your association, your cultural association with the word kill. Hopefully, this doesn't get like this video doesn't get like
Ha! Right.
just nerfed,
That
but.
that would be ironic.
Uh, Whatever. I guess the six people that see it based on the survivorship bias will get a kick out of it. So, no, I'm sure that won't happen because people love your stuff and we'll check it out as soon as I put your name there. But yeah, I mean, I feel like there's just all these different connections between conlanging and censorship that I just hadn't even thought of before this conversation. So I'll have to start digging into that.
I
Uh,
mean, yeah, the classic example is Newspeak,
oh yeah, yeah,
1984. That's like sort of a conlang for censorship purposes. Realistically, I don't think we're ever going to be in a Newspeak scenario because we're so smart at coming up with new
yeah,
ways to say what we want to say. We have incredible tenacity at that. At the end of the day, we're always going to find a way to talk about what we want to talk about. So I'm not worried about like a Orwellian dystopia, but it's fun to think about, and potentially it does limit us in the short term. The fact that these things are being censored, the fact that we have to relearn new words, the fact that those new words are always just going to have a different vibe. Why is it weird for a student to write an essay about Hamlet unaliving himself? It's because there's a
yeah.
different social context we perceive to that word. It's because it's not a pure synonym of kill.
Yeah, you're right. And yeah, it's like I like the idea of like humans being tenacious and that like because you can see that with like Creole languages, right? Like your Creoles arise from pidgins, which are kind of like Newspeak almost, like they're just so reduced. But then they're quickly within a generation, just kids growing up are they're just like if I don't have a word for that, I'm just gonna make it. We're gonna make it as a
We're so
culture,
good at that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
which is so
That's
cool.
yeah.
But I was gonna say, yeah, like it doesn't just because we are good at that and we're so adaptable, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's still not other effects that can happen, based off of because the language is part of your context. So if the context is what determines the language, and the language is part of the context, and it is kind of like this cyclical thing.
It's not separate for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, it's a proxy for culture, but it also influences culture. Right. Yeah.
yeah,
It's right.
yeah. This is a very meta conversation, but it just is like I mean, it's
Well,
like it's
another thing I like about doing what I'm doing is like it always gets super meta. If like I'm an influencer researching algorithms, but I'm also like working with the algorithm, but like I don't know, and then I'm researching the fact that I'm researching the fact that
yeah,
yeah.
you're like you're subject to the same things that you're literally talking about. Like
Right,
it's yeah.
right.
It is. I mean, yeah, but that's just the embodied experience of being anything, right? But you can always kind of zoom out and then to a frame of reference that contains yourself and talk about that, even though that frame of reference is also contained in your frame of reference or whatever. So I
Right.
love that's like a hits blunt kind of moment. But hopefully I don't know if blunt is gonna censor this either. But maybe they're chill with that. Well, talking about all this stuff, getting meta and everything, I think the only hits blunt thing we can do next is talk about the future of language. Like where's this all leading? Like what, obviously that's where you get about as speculative as possible. Linguists like talking about things in the past. They like think that they also talk less so, but still talk about things in the present. Obviously you being an exception, talking about it a lot. And then, but where's things going in the future? Like what can we expect?
I mean, famously, it's hard to predict the future. Uh, you can make sort of what I like about my book is it's sort of a roadmap for the patterns that are unfolding. And as we get new words, we can be like, yeah, this is still in this pattern of
Yeah.
algorithms bringing us language. So I can confidently say that I think until they find a more addictive form of social media, and this one feels pretty addictive, we're going to keep seeing algorithms shape how we communicate. And that's going to occur through the censorship thing. That's going to occur through the memes that are being populated. It's going to occur through the echo chambers and in groups that are formed through algorithmic filter bubbles. And then those filter bubbles are going to be opened up just enough for new words to emerge from those and create broad cross internet trends. It's going to emerge through the increasing methods of categorization we're seeing through algorithms. All these patterns are going to remain. The
Yeah.
individual words are just uh I mean, there's a reason we're not saying them yet, and it's because they're not
Yeah.
socially popular. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like how that all plays out is just such a complex thing that it's yeah, you can't you make your wild guesses and maybe be right about some of it, but realistically it's pretty hard. I like doing it with the sound changes, like trying to guess what sound changes will occur, because that seems like over long time scales like more regular. I think that's actually the coolest part about it is like it's like
Hmm.
it's somewhat divorced from the other context, but obviously not entirely because like for instance like the way French might have Norman French might have influenced English to have like the great vowel shift or whatever. So, but sort of you can sort of imagine it's just kind of being like this deterministic thing. So I don't know. I like trying to
In another
guess
sense,
what.
it's just a vibe shift. Like we all feel like we just should start like talking in a slightly different way. Maybe that's also socially conditioned. Like, why do vowel shifts happen? There's no
Yeah,
mechanism for it that people have actually. We're just like, yeah, yeah. At some point, all of our A's switch into O's, but we don't talk about why. I think
yeah.
it's literally just a vibe shift.
Well, yeah. One thing I think is so crucial that is again supporting what you were saying before, where there's like languages aren't just going to stop changing; it might even speed up with the internet and stuff. Is because people like to define themselves as different from previous generations. I think that's a
Hmm.
large motivating factor. Just
Hmm.
that as simple. It's like I don't want to talk like my mom. That's lame. Like I don't talk. I want to talk. I want to talk like my friends or something. Like
That will
like it's
always be a thing. There's always going to
yeah,
also adults. We always get more crystallized in our attitudes toward language, and we're always going to have an attitude of these kids are ruining language. And then we're going to die. Our kids are going to grow up. They're going to start being pissed at their kids, but then they're going to die. It's just going to keep happening like that. Words are going to keep being replaced piece by piece. That's inevitable. That's something we've always seen. That's something we always will see. See, I can like broadly talk about these patterns. I can't tell you any individual word is, going to become super popular. There's like words that are trending right now, which are probably going to continue to trend. But like broadly predicting something like that is, we're just going to have to accept it as it comes.
yeah, exactly. I mean, just as I was talking about, trying to hope that sound changes were divorced from the sociological context. Now we're talking about how younger generations don't want to be like the older generations and stuff like that. That's just you can't really separate it out. And I think actually, in my previous conversation with Laura Spinney again, she mentioned maybe there's some evidence that languages change most right as two groups are trying to distinguish themselves. So like if there's a
Yeah.
split, they change most right at the split point, and then they just kind of like maybe hover in parallel a little bit more. Like yeah,
So in the evolutionary analogy, that gets really interesting because there's two models for there's punctuated versus dynamic equilibrium, where language suddenly change or it slowly evolves over time. And truthfully, it's probably a little bit of both. Like, why do species separate? Oh, there's some sudden environmental thing that causes the species to move in a different direction. But now that they're there, there's still going to be like small things that are happening. I think
yeah,
it is a good analogy for language. It's a oddly good analogy. We should remember
yeah,
that it is not exactly the same, but
yeah.
low key, it kind of has some points.
Yeah, it's like there's that big split point, and that's probably some sort of sociological thing, right? Like it's like if the two tribes, split off from each other because they got in
There's
some argument about
anti-language. That's constantly, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and so then they're just like, I don't want to talk like them anymore. Like let's say our A's is O's or whatever, and then there you go. Um, yeah, so I mean, who knows what all those rules that the rules that we're talking about are gonna how those are gonna play out. But it is yeah, I agree. I think it will follow these rules, right? And maybe some other ones. I know like AI and stuff is it's whole different dimension to this, right? It's like it's powering the algorithms, but then there's also like now there's AI generated content, and like how's that going to affect things? And
I like what you
yeah,
said earlier that, language is just a part of the culture. It feels like it's separate, but it's also just there too. So the AI stuff, like, yeah, we have like AIs and we know that they talk a little bit differently than us, but that's actually going to affect how we talk. Now we might use the words like delve more because that's like more used by AI. We might use it less
yeah,
because we want to sound less like AI. But either way, the fact that AI is using some language is going to affect our non-AI language as well. The fact that they're using M dashes more in AI or
yes,
there's
yeah, I
certain
was going to say
grammatical structures, stuff like that is really going to affect the way we speak as well.
Yeah, that M dash is like a classic. I think it's like
I
I saw you mention it. Like
I hate it. I
somebody made a
love my
book.
M dashes. I wrote a Substack post recently and someone's like, "Is this AI because you're using all these M dashes?" No, I just really like M
Oh,
dashes.
really? You're one of the actual people that yeah, I was like,
It's really rough being an M dash enjoyer. Yeah.
yeah, that's not a good time for you. But yeah, like whenever I see it, I basically assume that it's AI can generate. I think they use it as like a proxy for what was it? Is it they did some study where they're saying like it was like some headliner like it was like crazy amount of content generated by AI, and then just the way they tracked it
Well,
was
there's other stuff. There's like the grammatical structures. Some are like appear more than others. It's not just blank. It's
yeah,
also blank. Like there's certain like sentence formats that work. And again, even though it's not even people anymore, it's sociological. These LLMs are trained to have certain outputs that humans have rewarded, and it might be because they sound like they're trying to be a digital servant to us, so they're talking more like a servant. They're overly polite
yeah,
and enthusiastic, and at the same time, they're still kind of weirdly formal in a way that they can never really pull off slang correctly. All of these things together, because they have a representation of the way that humans are socially supposed to be talking to each other, and that representation is a little bit different than reality. The map will never be the territory. And then we're looking at this map, we're like, oh, something's a little bit off here. They're using the word commendable way more times than they should be. Um, it's because the AI representation of language, just like the dictionary is a good example. It's not all of language, it's just like a static version of language.
yeah.
So the AI's representation is not language itself, but it is a piece of the overall picture that is going to affect language as a whole.
Yeah, that's a great way to talk about it. Like the humans are the source of the data, and the humans are using the AI, and therefore getting impacted by the AI. So the AI is also the source of the data, or at least the next generation models, right? Like,
Same thing with algorithms, and also the algorithm stuff I'm talking about. That's all AI driven as well. There are LLMs
yeah,
like creating like yeah.
yeah. I think it is. It is. Well, here's a linguistic change that we can track in modern times. Is just the idea, like the word AI now has in a general connotation, it's like just it means LLMs now for a lot of people. Like if I say like they use AI, I think in a video I said they used AI to decode these ancient scrolls or something. It wasn't like an LLM. It wasn't even generative AI at all. But it's like
Right. Because that's the biggest
people think of now.
application.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's our mental prototypes is another just thing when we're thinking about language. Like what do we think in our head? And that's also depending on a point in space and time and our own background. Yeah.
Yeah, so like AI doesn't even mean what it meant like 2 years ago. Well, I mean that's probably most true for fields that are constantly changing. So like, and it makes sense. Like you're I don't know if you came up with the term algo speak, but it's a great term, and it encapsulates something that's new as prompted by this technology, and then all tons of words around surrounding that are also going to probably need to change too as we keep diving further into this technology, and the technology keeps changing, right? So. But then the term spoon probably isn't going to change that much. Like it's probably just going to still be spoon in 10 years, hopefully. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I never would have predicted that a hot dog became a glizzy, you know? You'd think a hot dog, that just makes sense. But sometimes funnier words will come around. And spoon will stick around probably for a minute, but at some point there'll be some
Yeah,
funnier replacement for it. And piece by piece language gets replaced like that. There's this
yeah,
Ralph Waldo Emerson quote that I always like to use that language is fossil poetry, that we're just a bunch of memes stacked in a trench coat. He didn't say that part.
yeah,
But things that were compelling to people in the past get entrenched in language. We forget why they were compelling. And then we keep replacing them slowly or adding new things that are compelling to us. And then those are going to stick. They're going to become fossilized. People are going to lose the idea of why those were funny or cool. That's why etymology is kind of really amazing because you get to like
Yeah.
see what was interesting to people before.
Yeah. I mean, I love that aspect of it. That's a great point with like historical linguistics because even with reconstructed languages that are just like a fraction of what the actual full language would have looked like, you can tell like very you can make confident claims about the culture and then you can reinforce that with like other forms of evidence. But Proto-Indo-European had a word for bear, but then like none of a lot of the
Right.
daughter languages didn't have the word for
Right.
bear
So
because they
the
replaced
the
it. Yeah.
taboo on the word bear tells you
Yeah.
a lot about Proto-Indo-European culture, the fact that they were scared of bears, like that. We know that. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
you're
only
just
because of language.
yeah, and it's like it's a fossilized. Uh, I don't know. What would you say? Mimetic something?
Yeah, fossil. I like
Yeah,
the yeah.
yeah. It contains obviously not everything, but it does contain a lot of culture just in some sort of like encoded form, and then obviously that eventually changes, and that's a one way to maybe measure like cultural shifts over time. Although nowadays we have so much more data, I'm sure we can actually make even more confident claims about that, like how cultures have changed. But like retronyms and all that, as soon as something new happens, you forget about the old thing, or you have to rename it. And yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I think the main impact to algorithms is maybe just making it faster, honestly, or
yeah,
emergently reinforcing the platform trends into our culture a little bit, but at the same time we're still humans. End of the
yeah,
day, like we're just using language to connect with each other. That seems fine.
yeah. Well, when you think about it, I guess one of the funny thing is the most categorically different thing isn't actually a linguistic thing. It's more of like, well, I guess it all is interrelated, right? But like, it's like the fact that it's accelerating it, right? But it's also there's like certain few people at the top controlling it. Like, I mean, not trying to be like all conspiracy theory, but like that is like you actually they do wield a certain amount of power over this cultural context. Whereas like a king back in
Everyone
the
always
day,
does.
like
Academic institutions in the past held power.
yeah.
Institutions like the Académie Française, like these language planning institutes, actually had a lot of power in
Uh,
the media, which words they get to use. So who's holding the power? There will always be somebody
yeah,
like
true.
kind of influencing what words we can and cannot use. Can't envision. I mean, I'd love to envision, but I can't envision a human society that doesn't have some sort of power structure going on there.
Yeah, I guess it's always going to be there's always even if it's not a power structure, there's going to be somebody that's the source of the words. Like I mean, whether it's a celebrity or just some guy, some charismatic member of your tribe, just cooking up new words. It's probably it's not always going to be just equally distributed. There's going to be somewhere that's coming from. I think the term YOLO is like Drake populated or popularized that or something. It's like
Huh.
they actually
I didn't know that
have
one. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if he came up with it, but that certainly has an effect when like a celebrity uses a word in a song or something like that. But yeah, so maybe there isn't even anything realistically like categorically novel that there's just a few people controlling it. And so it's always kind of been like that. Maybe they have yeah again it's like a more efficient way of controlling language or affecting it. Maybe
I
we'll have to
mean,
go.
for something to really happen, it's got to be some degree of bottom up like language
Yeah,
change, like it feels organic or authentic. But it can start with a uh, culturally cool person that the masses want to imitate.
true. Yeah, I mean, there's all these different factors, but they get kind of capitalized in this one technology, and we're gonna see where that goes, right? Well, I'm gonna pump this conversation into that evolutionary environment and see how well it does. I think people will
Survival
get
of
a
the
kick out of
fittest. We'll see.
Yeah, no, it's been great talking to you, and I think yeah, no, I like collaborating, and I like what you're doing. I mean, it's
Thank
everybody's
you. You're working on cool stuff as well.
yeah, I like that you're focusing on it's kind of like you're doing your own research too, like or you're writing your own stuff, you're contributing to stuff that people will be able to point to later, and I think that's great. I'll have to start doing some of that. I got to start doing some conlanging too. I love that. That's still
Definitely get
untapped.
into it. It's
Yeah,
incredible. Yeah, I got to get back into it as well. Yeah,
yeah.
hopefully after
It's,
this book.
yeah, maybe your next book will be a conlanging book. We'll see. Fingers crossed. Anyway, yeah, I've had a great time and want to see what people think about this. So, without further ado, I hope everybody listening has a great day, and hope you have a great day. And also, don't forget to check out the new book, Algo Speak. Sounds like it's gonna be fascinating. Here we
All
go. Look at
right.
that,
Yeah. Well,
beautiful.
thank you. Thank you very much.